Good day, everybody. Throughout my career, started my career in New York City, actually just a few blocks from where I'm sitting here today talking to you. I've struggled with the question of covering New York stories disproportionately. You all know the famous New Yorker cover shows the perspective from New York City and business capital, media capital, arts capital, and Big Apple City that never sleeps so nice named it twice. But one of my first jobs in TV was at about 11 o'clock at night. I would call 10:30, half an hour before the local news. I'd call the big affiliated stations in the Northeast and ask them what their lead was. I don't really, I never really understood why because we never did much with the information. But I'd write down. I had a list: WPVI in Philadelphia and stations in Maine and Boston. And I'd call and I'd say, it's Mark from the National News Desk in New York, ABC. Can you tell me what your lead is on the 11 o'clock? And there were sometimes some really big stories that had they been, what struck me was, had they been New York stories, had the things they were telling me were happening in their market in New York, they would have been national stories. But just stories in New York get covered more. I bring this up because I like to sometimes start the show as if it's a Spalding Gray monologue. I bring this up because I had a long time two-way community member email me 7 times today, increasing levels of anger and hysteria, saying that we were covering on two-way. We covered the New York City mayor's race a lot, and what about the Albuquerque, New Mexico mayor's race, or one of the other mayor's races around the country? And I tried to explain why, but he was not satisfied. Uh, and so often when we cover and throughout my career when I've covered a New York story, asked the question, uh, is it legit? Is it a story of national import and interest? The example I always give is there was a mother, a nursing mother, who was kicked out of a Starbucks in New York for breastfeeding her baby years ago, and it was a national story for days. And I said, without fear of contradiction, had that happened in Chicago, let alone Albuquerque, let alone bumfuck Montana, nobody would have ever heard about it. But because it happened in New York, it was a big national story. So I'd be curious if I could survey everybody here, I would. Who thinks the New York City mayor's race is a story that's interesting, worthy of discussion? There's no doubt that it's not just the biggest city. Jen in Oklahoma does. That's a good focus group of one. It's not just it's New York City, biggest city in the country, and and all that. And it's not just because it'd be the first Muslim American mayor. The guy's 34. It's not just because the president's engaged in the race. There are lots of other smaller things that make this an interesting story. It's intrinsically interesting, but there's no doubt we've overcovered here. If the standard is a cover mayor's races equally, no matter what's going on in them, the size of the city. So there's a new poll out today. Do we have the poll? I can't even remember if we have the poll. Do we have that poll? Let's see.
Which poll? We have the New Hampshire polls.
No, we don't have the New York mayor's race. Anyway, front of the New York Post, there's a big new poll that shows previously had Cuomo down like 20, now he's down 10. Okay, and we showed you this morning on the morning meeting, the early voting data suggests the electorate's better for Cuomo demographically than it was in the primary. And today, Mondami was caught in a lie. Not the lie of greatest consequence. He said after the debate, he said that he told the story about his aunt. I won't go into it. He told the story about, he said it was about his aunt. And then today he acknowledged it wasn't about his aunt. It was about another relative, more distant relative. In any event, if the press weren't convinced the race was over, which most of the press is, the confluence of things, including some of the stuff I just told you, but some other things as well, would make this very exciting. Maybe Cuomo is going to win. But it's difficult for me to talk about it. And besides my cough, it's difficult for me to talk about it because in the back of my mind, I'm still saying maybe this is not a story of interest to people. New York City mayor's race if you don't live in New York. Anyway, we will talk about that because we will. And we'll also talk about the government shutdown, some incredibly important developments in the government shutdown. Part of why our show will be a little different than it often is because the president, since the morning meeting, the president's been asleep practically, right? Because the 12 hours. So is it Tokyo 12 or 14 these days? I can't ever remember. It's somewhere between 12 and 14. So no news from the president overnight, although there's still fallout from some of the things he said. On Air Force One. Hold on. Somebody's got to mute there. So we'll talk about the president's MRI as well. I'm curious to see what our guests think about that. Our guests today will be Amber Duke, editor at the Daily Caller, one of the best reporters we have on the show. Glad to have her back. And Michael LaRosa, former aide to Joe Biden, who's Jekyll and Hyde on the tearing down of the East Wing. He's written about it. He's been quoted about it. Sometimes Michael acts as if Donald Trump should be in a guillotine for tearing down the East Wing, and then other times he says the party's overreacting. So I've not had a chance to talk to him about it, at least not lately. So I'm eager to talk to him about that, even though it's not in the news and all the stuff we have. So in a moment, our guests will be here. We'll run through the news of the day together. And then, of course, we'll get to your questions and comments. If you're on the two-way platform, would like to be in on the conversation, we'd love to have you. Raise your hand. If you're watching on X or YouTube, tonight would be a good night to just not put smack in the chat. Just as you start to go into the chat, particularly on YouTube, just think, Mark always talks about peace, love, and understanding. Is my chat comment, is that consistent with the extension of the presumption of grace to all and love, peace, and understanding? And if the answer in your little head says no, don't type anything or type something nice. Say, Lucas Hawley, what a nice shirt you're wearing. Something nice like that. Let's try it. And then after the show, when I get the data analytics, the AI sweeps through the chat and it searches out key smacky words. Maybe it'll say, Mark yields no smack quotient 0. That could happen. Probably not. But let's try that. So a couple sponsors tonight, and then to your questions, or to our guests rather, and then to your questions. And again, would love your participation. All right. Couple sponsors. First, our friends at CB Distillery. Big discount tonight, bigger than you've been offered before. 40% off on CB Distillery products, natural CBD. Go to cbdistillery.com, 40% off using the promo code. You'll like this promo code, VIP. If you're having trouble sleeping, if aren't feeling relaxed enough at night, CB Distillery products can make a big difference. They have solutions that work for your body. Over 2 million people trust the products from CB Distillery. Here's your chance to try clean ingredients, no fillers, just premium CBD. Ready to try a better sleep regimen? CB Distillery products can be part of that. Save 40% off, as I said, your entire order. Go to cbdistillery.com. Use the promo code VIP. Again, cbdistillery.com. The promo code's VIP, 40% off. Give it a try. Tell them Lucas's shirt sent you. cbdistillery.com. All right. One more sponsor here. One you know too, Cozy Earth. Friends at Cozy Earth make great products, bedding, sheets, and the bubble cuddle blanket, as well as pants and shirts, all available to you 20% off at the promo code two-way at cozyearth.com. If your family wants to try some really comfortable stuff, I recommend it to you. Great night's sleep on the bedding. 100-day return guarantee, 10-year warranty, but you won't need either in all likelihood because they're sheets, viscose made from bamboo, extremely comfortable. Magically keep you cool when you need to be kept cool and warm when you need to be warm. And you'll love them. You'll love them. I love them. I use them. And the pants are exceptional. I'm wearing them today. I wore them today. Same thing. It always happens when I wear the pants. Somebody says, hey, nice pants. Sometimes they know it's Cozy Earth. It's a little inside joke. But today it was just someone I'm at a meeting with. So again, go to cozyearth.com. Use the promo code two-way, 20% off, because home isn't just where you live. It's how you feel. Let's go home to Cozy Earth. Thank you for your attention to that matter. Here we go, everybody. News of the day. And who better to talk to us about the news of the day than these two great Americans? Amber Duke. Amber hasn't been here all that recently. So, Amber, we have a lot of new folks on tonight, I see. Tell people where you work and how you got into journalism, please.
Sure. I'm the senior editor for the Daily Caller and co-host of Rising at the Hill. And I got into journalism by accident. Was applying for a smattering of jobs out of college and happened to get a couple of offers from media outlets. Gave it a shot, fell in love, and the rest is history.
Awesome. And where can people read your work?
They can find me on X at Amber Marie Duke or check out my work at dailycaller.com. My newsletter, Unfit to Print, is now on Substack.
That is a good name for a newsletter. How'd you think of that?
I obviously ripped it from the New York Times tagline, all the news that's fit to print, but just a happy accident. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very smart. Okay, thank you for being here. Love having you here. Michael LaRosa, also regular here. We love having Michael on. Lately I've been talking sometimes like the guy who impersonates Trump on Saturday Night Live, accidentally. Like Michael LaRosa. Love having Michael on. I don't know, it sounds like that to me. Michael, amongst Democratic strategist, amongst other clients, has worked for Jill Biden and recently was quoted somewhere saying that he nostalgic for the East Wing because he and her top advisor would sit and drink wine in the East Wing together. Michael, was that government funded wine? Who's paid for the wine? You and the First Lady were drinking down like I have, slamming like I have Gatorade.
No, what I said was occasionally we could sit and at the end of the day have a glass of wine, relax, and not take ourselves so seriously. But that wine would have been paid for by the family account because they paid for the groceries.
Yeah. Okay. And so you weren't slamming over breakfast. You're saying you were having some small sips in the evening.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. As we would on the campaign. And that's what Jill's style is, a little informal.
Understood. We're not going to talk at length about the East Wing today because there's not much happened. But am I right that you've been kind of a little bit all over the map on this, saying Democrats shouldn't make such a big deal about it, but also waxing nostalgic about the East Wing? Or have I misread?
So I've been asked my thoughts about what I thought when I saw the pictures, which was, I was a little aghast. I was surprised. I didn't know it was going to be completely demolished. And sure, I'm sentimental about my office going away and that part of the White House going away as it was. But it's a different question from whether all presidents have the right to upgrade and modernize, beautify the White House. And I think it's just an example of small d democracy that you're seeing it all evolve. Every president leaves let's put it this way. Every president and first family can leave their physical mark on the 18 acres if they choose to. And this one certainly is. And in the end, I don't really care. And is the ballroom needed? Yeah, of course it's needed. Would it be my first choice to bulldoze the East Wing? No, but he's building another one.
Yeah. Michael, more nuance in that answer than one would hear on 24 hours of cable news. In all seriousness, thank you for being so thoughtful about. There's some nuance there, and it's all understandable, but most people wouldn't have that nuance. Amber, I'd just love to know. There's a Wall Street Journal editorial page editor today wrote an op-ed in the Journal. Sometimes the editorial page editors write signed columns or pieces. Someone I'd never heard of, a woman named Colin. I'd never heard of a woman named Colin. I don't know if you know her. Forget her last name. She wrote a piece today. It sounded like Adam Schiff, just denouncing the destruction of the East Wing and imbuing it with all this metaphorical significance. Contrary to, ironically, the Washington Post ed board, which said it's all fine that Trump did this and fine that he didn't ask anybody because if he had, it would have taken 7 years to get approval. So where are you on the ballroom? Are you pro ballroom, anti ballroom? Are you nostalgic for the East Wing at all?
I don't have any East Wing nostalgia. I am happy about the ballroom. I think it makes perfect sense. The idea that we have to host dignitaries in a tent on the South Lawn seems absurd. We should have a beautiful entertainment space. If you've ever been to an event at the White House, you know how crowded it can get if they try to hold it in the East Room or somewhere else in the main residence. If it's true that the architects came in, they found that the East Wing was too unstable to have an additional annex of this ballroom attached to it, then I think it's all well and good that he would go ahead and try to rebuild that and make it stronger. I
haven't heard that thing about the East Wing not being stable, but is that something that's been reported?
That was the explanation for why they demolished the entire thing as opposed to just taking down the facade.
Huh, not heard that.
Well, it's stable. I mean, that is where the bunker was after 9/11. I mean, there's a bunker underneath the East Wing.
Yeah, and that's another interesting part of this is that I think one of the undercovered perhaps reasons why these changes are so significant as well is it sounds like they're now renovating the bunker also. Yeah. So that might be another hidden reason why Trump has decided to do this is because he wants the opportunity to go down and reconstruct that bunker.
Yeah, I mean, I forget how long ago it was built, but obviously it could use some upgrades. Like you need some direct TV down there or something, something a little more modern.
A beer
Okay,
fridge.
exactly. All right, let's talk about the shutdown. I'll just tell you my day. I've been surprised at how few people I've heard from expressing concern about the impact of the shutdown. People have talked about November 1st as a date when there would be more of an impact with various benefits being cut off, et cetera. But today, here's the things I heard. I heard that a lot of congressional aides who are younger, who aren't getting paid, are not being able to pay their student loans, and they feel bad about that. I'm hearing a lot of White House, not White House, congressional aides also, and some members expressing the belief now that this thing's never going to end. Like there's no end in sight. And a big development today, the main union that represents federal government employees, as well as DC employees, came out with a statement. This is number 6, please. They didn't mention the Democrats or the Republicans, but their message was unmistakable. Largest federal workers union, is the Washington Post headline, calls for, quote, clean bill to end shutdown. The American Federation of Government Employees is calling for a stopgap funding measure to bring employees back to work with back pay. That's exactly what the Republicans want. So the workers union is siding with the Democrats or with the Republicans, saying let's do a clean bill and get people back to work. Now, once they made that announcement, every Capitol Hill reporter want to know what do Democrats think, because on the one hand, they don't want to side with the Republican position so unambiguously, but on the other hand, the labor union is their constituency, and so far we've only been able to find Democratic senators saying, whatever. Jeanne Shaheen of New Hampshire, who's central to these negotiations for a variety of reasons, and Elizabeth Warren, both basically said, thanks, but no thanks. We're not going to change our position based on the union. So, Michael, do you think some Democrats or even these Democrats eventually will be forced to follow the union, or are battle lines so starkly drawn that this won't move them?
Well, I saw Patty Murray also said that her position won't change, but I did see Dick Durbin, and what he said was, like a good Democrat, labor Democrat that he is doing his politics, said, yes, of course it matters what they say. Of course, we're going to take it under consideration. Of course, we're listening, and we're listening to them very clearly. So I think, do I think this will be a major topic at the lunch tomorrow? Yeah, I do. I think it will. Whether it changes their trajectory or their position, I don't know. I probably doubt it. I mean, you'd be surprised, Mark, how much power Elizabeth Warren has within the conference or the caucus. I mean, I could only tell you from being in the White House, she was able to nix very benign, very under the radar nominees. I mean, the White House was scared to death of her.
Yeah.
She had a lot of sway, a lot of influence over staff at the staffing level. I can only imagine how much sway she has in caucus.
Yeah. Amber, any sense of how this might end at this point? Or is it to you just a endless?
I haven't seen any meaningful movement from either the Democrats or the Republicans. So it's very unclear to me what a negotiation would look like at this point. I mean, Democrats clearly are unwilling to budge on the Obamacare subsidies. Republicans have said that they're kind of willing to negotiate, but the Democrat response has been, well, it's either all or nothing. So it's possible that when SNAP benefits run out, when the military stops getting paid for a longer period of time, that will start to be more politically painful for either party. But you also had Congresswoman Catherine Clark saying that was basically part of the Democrat strategy, that there needed to be some suffering for people to understand what they were trying to do. So I have not seen anything meaningful that suggests we're coming to an end anytime soon.
Yeah, even Tim, go ahead, Michael.
No, I'm sorry, Mark. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I was just going to say that next week is going to be a big week for what a deal could, if a deal could happen. You're going to have the military's the military paychecks not coming out on the 30th, SNAP and WIC on the 1st. You have the election in Northern Virginia, which has a lot of federal employees on the 4th. If there isn't a deal by the end of that week, then you should expect it to keep going for a while.
Yeah, yeah.
But you saw tonight, though, there's a ground stop at DFW, and because of staffing issues as well. So you're going to start to see some pain points, but both sides seem comfortable where they are.
Yeah, I flew into DFW on Saturday, and I feel blessed to have gotten in there. Amongst the other Democratic senators who were reacting with a shrug to what the labor union said is Tim Kaine, who of course represents Virginia, has a lot of government employees who are federal workers. But Michael said something really shrewd I want to highlight, which is the dynamic in the lunch tomorrow is different than all the senators reacting separately on the fly. And if some Democratic senators in the lunch, and again, these are partisan lunches, it's just the Democrats, if some of them say, hey, this is an opportunity for us, we can blame it basically in effect on the federal workers to get out of this, that could snowball a little bit because of the dynamic in those lunches. I've never been to one, but I've heard one.
It will be interesting to see if any members are getting pressure from their local AFGE as well, like somebody like an Ossoff.
Yeah.
In Atlanta or whatever.
That's right. So we haven't heard from Chuck Schumer lately, at least not on this show. And one human subplot of this story of the shutdown will end is how will Schumer and Jeffries come out of this politically? I think they both performed poorly, and I base that not on my own judgment, but on talking to Democrats. They've not been criticized much publicly, but behind the scenes, people aren't thrilled. And of course, Schumer will almost certainly take heat from the left if there's any deal that's not just a Trump capitulation, and there certainly won't be. So here's Chuck Schumer earlier today complaining about the president being overseas during the shutdown. Number 3, please, Sam.
Days away. Starting this Saturday, tens of millions of Americans face the specter of financial crisis, all while Donald Trump is dancing on the tarmac in Malaysia. Donald Trump may be having a nice time abroad, but people here at home are dreading open enrollment. Insurance plans that cost $300 or $400 a month will suddenly cost $2,000 a month or more, because Republicans prefer to shut the government down over working with Democrats to extend the ACA tax credits. Consequently, the average ACA plan is set to more than double starting next year. The average 60-year-old couple making $85,000 a year will soon have to pay an extra $22,000 or more just to have health insurance.
Amber, how would you rate the job Senator Schumer's done to lead his party through this so far?
I don't feel like he was looking at the long game when he decided to get into this shutdown. He, I believe, went through with this because he's worried about a primary challenge from AOC. You have the Democratic base basically begging the Democrats to do something to stop Trump. And this was one lever of power that he had available to him. I suspect they probably had some pollsters go out. They found that healthcare is a major issue for Americans. They thought, okay, great, we can make this the crux of our shutdown argument. But he didn't consider, apparently, the fact that the subsidies they're arguing over were meant to be emergency pandemic era subsidy and were never meant to be extended. He apparently didn't consider that a lot of the Medicaid changes that were made in the Big Beautiful Bill were related to reimbursements for illegal alien care that's given at hospitals and emergency rooms. And he apparently did not think about the long term in terms of if Republicans don't blink, which they haven't, he's going to have to budge a little bit. And then he's right back where he started with Democrats, again, accusing him of not doing enough. So I just think that this was a very, very short-term look from Leader Schumer, and he didn't consider what really comes next, what messaging the Republicans would be able to use against the Democrats. And now he's kind of between a rock and a hard place.
Michael, if 0 is Mayor Quimby and 10 is George Mitchell at his very best as majority leader, where would you rate Senator Schumer? Again, 0 is Mayor Quimby, 10 is George Mitchell at his best.
I think Mitchell had very different skill sets than Schumer, but I'd probably Schumer, if Mitchell's at a 10, I would say Schumer's at like a a 7, but that's only because the expectations of media are very different. The expectations of performance and tribalism are very different. Mitchell did not have to deal with the amount of tribalism on both sides when it comes to getting deals. So it's just very different. But so I wouldn't say he's been the greatest performer, but where Schumer is, skilled is 90% of that caucus owes their seats and their reelections to him. He's an incredible recruiter. He's an incredible fundraiser. But I also don't think he was ever planning. If I had to put money on it, I never thought he was really going to run for reelection in a couple of years anyway. It's like 2 cycles away. I never thought that's really in his calculus. But what you have seen is Schumer go from only talking about he's been very careful up until recently about only talking about healthcare, because he's deliberately trying to give himself room for negotiation with Thune, not specifically ACA subsidies. Now, it seems like runway is starting to run out, so he's now shifting a little bit. But most of the negotiation, he's been trying to give his colleague Thune some breathing room, and we are starting to see the Republicans are actually working on an end-of-the-year health package, it looks like. So I think that's something that we have to take into account, is what is happening between those two. We're not going to get everything we want, but I will also say several things can be true at once. Premiums were going up regardless, because everybody's been trying to prepare to comply with the end of the year deadline for months. The industry has been, asking Congress to get involved. So it's a little disingenuous to say it's completely on the Republicans for premiums going up. I mean, if I were Republicans, I would want to save those subsidies, even though if they were meant to be permanent, Democrats would have done that. But on the illegal immigration part, that's not accurate, I would say.
Right.
As much as I love you, Amber.
Yeah. I'm gonna run through some. Amber, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, there was a study from a think tank from the Manhattan Institute that looked at the level of reimbursements for California between 2023 and 2024. And they found that they skyrocketed pretty significantly, specifically because of the use of emergency room visits by illegal aliens. Because obviously the state Medicaid systems, the states that do provide care for illegal aliens, do get some reimbursement from the federal government. And what was happening was that illegal aliens are basically using emergency room visits as their primary care so that they can take advantage of the state Medicaid system.
Well, it's not just illegal aliens. It's also poor people who can't afford healthcare coverage or who don't have health insurance. So every doctor in every emergency room is obligated to treat anybody, regardless of skin color or immigration status. That's true regardless. But the Republican plan, the Republican position is not pay doctors for treating people that they are under oath obligated to treat. That's just what doctors do. I mean, this was settled hour one back in 2009, I think, or 2010 of ACA. So no, illegal immigrants are not covered under the ACA. Whether hospitals and emergency rooms are reimbursed, hospitals and doctors are reimbursed for treating everyone, not just illegal immigrants, but anybody who comes through an emergency room. Yes, that is true. However, the Republican plan doesn't take that away. They make it less. They make an illegal immigrant half a person. That's fine. They want to save money to pay for their bill, but they don't get rid of it either. Don't let them fool you.
Well, I think the point, though, is that Republicans are not arguing that poor people shouldn't be able to get access to emergency room care, and that burden should be on all of the taxpayers in that state or what have you, or on the doctor to not have their bill paid. But the issue is when you have a massive amount of illegal aliens in states that are sanctuary states taking advantage of the system, that makes it harder for the federal government, for state governments to be able to make sure that those poor American citizens are the ones who are getting their needs covered, right? Because money is not endless. It's not, a bottomless pocket.
That was the point of the mandate.
Yeah.
that was the point of the mandate. And every state, not just a sanctuary state, every state. every doctor, every hospital is obligated, and the federal government is obligated.
Right, but not every state allows legal aliens to access Medicaid, right?
But they're obligated. Every hospital in every state, every doctor is obligated.
But the point is that
treat.
if states want to make that policy that illegal alien healthcare is covered, regardless of where they go, whether it's emergency room or not. My point is, if
they would be funded they'd be refunded regardless,
but not necessarily through Medicaid, Michael. So the point is, if a state has a policy that illegal aliens get covered by Medicaid, particularly through emergency room visits, then they should have to bear the burden of that cost rather than the federal government, because that's a state level policy.
But the taxpayer is paying for it no matter what.
Yes, that's both of you are correct in your last statements. We'll move on. It's a great conversation. If you want to get in on the conversation, please raise your hand. I'm going to run through some stuff real quick here, and then we'll go to you with hands up. So please raise your hand if you want to be part of the conversation. Rand Paul has made a proposal for how to settle the shutdown, focusing on the healthcare issue. He says the president should appoint 3 Republican senators, 3 Democratic senators to spend a month negotiating how to deal with the healthcare issues. And in the meantime, the Democrats should agree to open the government and pay federal employees while the negotiations take place. So we'll see if Senator Paul gets his way. And the other senator from Virginia, which I said before, Senator Kaine, did not say the union calling for an end to the shutdown was swaying him. Senator Warner was kind of splitting the difference. He said not instantly swayed, but he said something to the effect of let's see what happens during the week. So perhaps they'll move that way. All right, let me run through a few other news items and then quick word from a sponsor, then get to your questions. Let me just go to stuff we haven't talked about. Back and forth between the president and AOC today. Washington Post reporters, an excerpt from a forthcoming book, says that Jack Smith thought about bringing the classified documents case not in Florida because they were worried that if they brought it in Florida, it would be assigned to the judge who eventually got the Trump-nominated judge who eventually got the case. What's that lady's name?
Eileen Cannon.
Thank you, Judge Cannon. That they worried and that they calculated that there was a 1 in 6 chance it would go to Judge Cannon. And some prosecutors believe if he brought the case in D.C., different result. 2 interesting polls out of New Hampshire. University of New Hampshire polled the 2028 field. And not shocking either case, but interesting. Here's the Republican results. Ask of New Hampshire Republicans and those voting Republican primary, number 15. Who would you support for president in 2028? J.D. Vance clearing 50%, 51%. Nikki Haley, I doubt she'd run again anytime soon, but maybe 9%. Tulsi Gabbard, 8%. Marco, 5%. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, 4%. Rand Paul, 4%. Ron DeSantis, 3%. Obviously, a big lead there for J.D. Vance. The Democratic side, a lot more fractured. Number 16. Pete Buttigieg, who's not often talked about as a first-tier candidate. I actually rate him higher than many do. 19%. Of course, he ran already once in New Hampshire. A very good fit as a New Hampshire candidate, a variety of reasons. Gavin Newsom, 15%, AOC, 14%, Kamala Harris, the other one in double digits at 11%. So 4 top candidates between 11 and 19. And then down to the other Sanders, not Sarah Huckabee Sanders, but Bernie at 8%, Pritzker 6%, Bashir 3%, Klobuchar 3%, Kelly 3%, Booker 2%, Shapiro 2%, Whitmer 1%, and then Westmore, Ro Khanna, and Rahm Emanuel all polling at the same level as Michael LaRosa, 0%. Let's see. Amazon laying off 30,000 corporate jobs. And there's the hurricane. All right. A couple of sponsors and then to your questions. So please, if you want to get in the conversation, excuse me, raise your hand. New sponsor tonight. Happy to have True Classic with us as a sponsor. Go to trueclassic.com/two-way. Really great clothes. It's getting colder, at least where I live, it's getting colder. True Classic starts with a simple mission: bring premium, comfortable clothing to the masses, because looking and feeling great shouldn't come with a designer price tag. Very affordable stuff, beautifully made. They've sold over 25 million shirts to more than 5 million customers. 25 million shirts to 5 million customers. That means they've sold a lot of shirts, but they've a lot of repeat business. They're basically, women can buy these, but they're basically guys' clothes for the outdoors. Very classic looks. They fit really well. They're very comfortable. And again, they feel like designer clothes, but they're priced right. So skip the cheap throwaway stuff. True classic, built for comfort, built to last, and built to give back. You can buy their stuff at all sorts of places: Amazon, Target, Costco, Sam's Club, but you can also buy them online. Help us out by buying them there, because they'll know you came through us. Trueclassic.com/two-way. Go there right now. Thank you for your attention to that matter. One more sponsor, and it's another new one. Cornbread. Cornbreadhemp.com/two-way. 30% off your first order. Cornbreadhemp.com/two-way. And if you need some relief, these are a natural way to do it. CBD gummies from Cornbread Hemp are formulated to work with your body, not against it. If you're a little older, they'll help you with physical and mental wellness. A huge part of a wellness plan to relax and feel better. If you've tried everything out under the sun to feel calm and relaxed, try this. Sounds like time to do something a little bit different. Again, this is a natural product, uses only the best part of the hemp plant, the flower, for the purest and most potent CBD, helps relieve discomfort, stress. Go right now, 30% off your first order. If you go to cornbreadhemp.com/two-way, use the code two-way at checkout for 30% off. Grateful to have them as a sponsor of the program. All right, let's go to your questions. As we bring you in, you'll tell us where you are, what's on your mind. And we begin with Paul. Paul, thank you for being part of Two-Way. You're good, sir. Good to go.
Hey, Mark. Thanks for calling on me. I know it's not been in the news recently, but I've been thinking about ICE and some of the actions that I'm seeing. And my question
Where do you live, sir?
San Jose, California.
San Jose. You've probably seen a lot there.
Yeah. And my question is that if we get to a spot where, sort of a wide number of Americans agree that these agents are overreaching, maybe behaving in ways that the vast majority of us don't really approve of, what would be the mechanism to stop them? How does it get stopped?
You mean if they start doing stuff that's violent or breaking the law, or?
Yeah, I mean, well, like running, I've seen car crashes. I've seen what looks like
Right.
American citizens being arrested. I've seen some stuff I don't particularly approve of. And how does it get stopped?
Yeah, it's a great question, Michael. I mean, the governors could ask, or a mayor or county could ask their police to get involved. But if they're out there doing stuff like arresting Americans, which apparently they're detaining them, which they've done, how could that be stopped? A judge? What would be the route to stop that?
I mean, I don't know. I was thinking at first, a judge, but I mean, they're there. They're federal law enforcement, so they're carrying out their mission from the federal government the way any local law enforcement has to carry out their orders as well. And so I don't know the answer, but the complication is that they are directed to technically set aside compassion and make arrests or detain people who are here illegally. So they are supposed to be going after people who are committing a crime. And I think that's where this gets complicated, right?
Yep. Amber, the governor of Oklahoma, Republican Stitt, said he wouldn't want to see the National Guard in his state from Illinois under Barack Obama. So I know you think a lot about issues of 10th Amendment and liberty. If you don't even have to say this about Donald Trump's ICE, but if federal agents like that are breaking the law, what is the check and balance in our system for something like that?
Well, if they're actually breaking the law, someone who had their rights violated could certainly sue for restoration. And the other option, of course, is to vote. in the midterms or the next presidential election. But I mean, the reality is Trump had a mandate for mass deportation, and there are polls that show that Americans don't necessarily approve of the way that he's doing that, but also that show that the majority of Americans still support the idea of mass deportation, even this far into his presidency. Otherwise, I mean, these are federal law enforcement agents, right? Immigration is a federal charter. They have a say over immigration. On the National Guard question, Trump has the authority to send in the National Guard if it is to make sure that federal law enforcement orders are being carried out. So if you have a case where people are trying to stop ICE vehicles, block facilities, engage in riots, then or other methods of unrest, then he has the lawful authority to do that, even against the governor's wishes.
Yeah, Paul, I want to let you speak again, but I want to see if either Amber or Michael want to ask you a question. Either of you have a question you'd like to ask Paul?
Well, is there something specific that you saw that you think that needs a check, needs to be federal law enforcement needs to be held accountable?
I'm seeing, I don't know if, there's some sort of echo chamber in my Twitter feed, but I've seen, traffic stops. Somebody was waving a AR-15 like recklessly. I've seen cars being hit, and it looks like there's a hit and run going on. I saw in California here, somebody was protesting, and he got tear gassed point blank in the face, and it's just, I'm seeing concerning things.
Yeah,
And the fear is like, if obviously they're doing this, but like if I is the only thing that we're gonna that I'm gonna hope for in order to kind of take some of this aggression back is some polling that gets the GOP to put pressure on Trump to stop this stuff? Is that that's the path?
I do think that there's probably popular opinion is probably on the president's side.
That I'm gonna hope for in order to kind of take some of this aggression back is
hold on. I don't know why we're hearing Paul's voice back.
Pressure on Trump.
It's a new one. It's a new one here. Amber, do you like to ask Paul a question?
I do think that there's.
Hold on. We're gonna have to kill that audio. Sam. Hold on. Sam, are you able to kill that? There we go. Amber, I don't know why we're hearing Paul's voice back. Now we're hearing my voice. Okay, let's hope that's done. Amber, did you have a question you wanted to ask Paul?
I had the same question as Michael, which is what specifically was concerning you. And, I think it's fair to say that there are a lot of cases, particularly in Chicago and Los Angeles, of people trying to impede federal law enforcement operations. And in that case, ICE, National Guard, et cetera, do have a lawful duty to make sure that they are able to execute their mission without interference. The instances of like car ramming, from what I saw, was protesters trying to ram into the back of ICE vehicles who were carrying detainees. I have not seen the videos of ICE ramming vehicles unless they were trying to perhaps detain someone who was inside, who was in the country illegally or was fleeing law enforcement. So a lot of these, you have to look at the individual case, because I was reading a ProPublica report today that said that 140 Americans have been detained by ICE in their sweeps of the country. But then you dig into a lot of the cases, and it's, again, people who are interfering with law enforcement or people who were shielding illegal aliens where ICE had warrants for their arrest and getting in the way. So it seems like there are very, very few handful of cases where American citizens were mistaken for illegal aliens and detained for a period of time before they were released. And even ProPublica admits that all of them who were wrongfully identified were released within 2 days, which courts have previously said is basically the max amount of time that they can be detained without charges being pressed.
Paul, I just want to say how grateful I am for you to coming on and really admire the elegant, calm, and principled way in which you raise your concern. Really, really great. And I'm gonna do a bigger sweep through. I've heard of the kind of examples you cited, but I want to go look into it myself. And again, I'm very grateful to you for being so principled and calm and gracious in raising what is clearly something that troubles you quite a bit. And again, you might not speak for tens of millions, but you certainly speak for millions. And so I'm grateful to you for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Winston, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind for Amber and for Michael.
Hello, folks. I'm in South Georgia, and I wanted to bring up, it seems like the shutdown is a process argument over regular order to me. Speaker Johnson and Senator Thune have repeatedly said over the last year that they wanted to do regular order. And the shutdown has basically stopped it in its tracks. And because we're not talking regular order, now we're talking healthcare as a grand bargain to extend it out so that the current budget gets extended out further instead of going through regular order. And there are a number of people in the country who would love to go back to regular order, which we have not had for many, many years.
Amber.
Well, I mean, that's what you hear Republicans saying, right? They want to do a clean CR, which Democrats previously supported when they were in the majority. But without 60 votes in the Senate, there's really nothing that they can do.
It's funny that a CR is now considered regular order.
Right.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, even a CR isn't considered regular order, and I don't even know if it's a regular order question. It's a math question, really. They need eight votes in the Senate. I think it's more of math than it is anything to do with process. I mean, Democrats already voted for this CR several times. These are Biden budgets. These are Biden spending levels. So nobody's really winning with them.
Yeah, there's plenty of blame to go around. But if you said turn the clock back to January 20th and catalog everything President Trump has done since January 20th to foster the probability of getting 8 Democratic votes for anything controversial, he's really done nothing. Just to the contrary. So Democrats have some obviously some responsibility too. But they haven't passed anything of significance that required Democratic votes because the whole thing's become so partisan. And again, the president's played into that quite a bit. And certainly of late, he's done a bunch of stuff that the posting of the timeline in the White House website of making fun of the Democratic presidents and posting Joe Biden's picture as the auto pen. These are not things that a whip operation trying to get 8 Democratic votes would do. So, Winston, thank you. Grateful to you. Appreciate you coming on. Okay, Joe, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind for Amber and for Michael.
Hey, everyone. Mark, love your podcast.
Thank you, sir.
You had a great episode last week, just kind of on how Trump morphs the coverage and anything he says just kind of dictates what the news is. What do you all feel are like either undercovered stories or just trends that you see in the media that maybe get pushed down in favor for whatever Trump said that day, for example?
Yeah, a great question, Michael. What's 1 or 2 things that Trump papers over by drawing the light to him?
Well, I think it's I would phrase it. I would react differently because I think it depends on what he says. If he says something that Fox or right media likes, they'll cover it like crazy. And if he says something that MSNBC hates, MSNBC will cover it all day long. So it's sort of a choose your own adventure for the silos that we live in now in terms of how we consume our news. I mean, I think this is the best platform to go to if you want to talk about things that you aren't watching or seeing on cable or on, sort of partisan podcasts.
Amber.
We ran a story today at the Daily Caller about how the U.S. is running out of weapons, which is very concerning if we were to get into some kind of conflict, especially a war. I feel like that's been pretty undercovered. Otherwise, I would say, surprisingly, Trump's trade deals that he's making in Asia, even though these were things that he would probably be pretty mouthy about, I think they haven't got much attention from the mainstream media. And then the last thing that I find really interesting is what's happening with the Barry Weiss takeover of CBS and sort of what that means for the future of mainstream legacy media. A lot of the backlash that's happening, whether justified or not, and sort of the implications that the hosts on CBS, like Margaret Brennan over the weekend, have been accused of parroting right-wing talking points. And there's like this insinuation that they're getting scripts from Barry Weiss in her first couple of weeks on the job. I'm just very curious to see where that all goes.
I hope they are. Joe, thank you. Grateful to you. Yeah, that Margaret Brennan thing was super interesting. We talked about it this morning. I'm still piecing it together. Matthew, welcome in. Unmute if you would. Tell folks where you are who don't know and what's on your mind for Michael and for Amber.
Oh, hi, Mark. Long time, first time, at least on this program.
Great to have you here, sir.
Early on, you said you get hate mail about the New York City race. You probably get hate mail about my comment because I want to go there. I live upstate, but
yeah.
I have a prediction, and I was curious if you think there's any possibility of this. So
yes, sir.
It's pretty clear that Curtis is not getting out of the race, Liwa. There's a lot of reasons, matching funds and all that. But do you think but he's quickly becoming the most hated man in New York City by many. And I'm wondering if there's any chance that just before the election, maybe this weekend, he would pull an RFK Jr. and say, don't vote for me. So stay on the ballot.
Yeah.
Say to his supporters,
I
did my best, but there's no path to victory. For the sake of the city, don't vote for me. Any chance of that happening?
Yeah, I think there's some chance, although again, because the early voting exists now in the city, some people voted for him. I think there's three things, maybe four, that are happening that would be maybe encouraging that and part of that if it happened to make the race more competitive. One is, and Sean and I both talked about this in the morning meeting. Anecdotally, there are Republicans who are voting early who say, "I never thought I'd vote for Andrew Cuomo, but I'm now convinced that if I vote for Curtis, then Mondami will definitely win." So that would play into that. Second, I haven't heard this, but I'd be surprised if there weren't Trump robocalls to Republicans at the very end. They don't want to do them now because Mondami makes hay out of Trump supporting Cuomo. But I think there could be robocalls, and if Curtis hears about that, which he would, he might encourage him to do what you're saying. Third is this news cycle, the race is being cast as more competitive, it's tightening because of this one poll and some of these other things, and so that could also encourage him to get out because he knows if the race is tight and his vote total is bigger than the margin Mondami wins by, he'll be in trouble. And then lastly, I believe, based on I haven't talked to Curtis himself about it, but I've talked to people who know him quite well. Part of why he hasn't gotten out is he's enjoying this. Those two debates were one of the highlights of his public career. He could milk all of that till the last weekend, as you suggest, and then choose to get out of the race, not off the ballot, and maybe even endorse Cuomo as Kennedy endorsed Trump, and that would be a kind of one more bite at the Big Apple, if you will, to get a big, to dominate the news in the last weekend. So I know there've been, as everyone here knows, there's been enormous efforts to get him out, and he's refused. But maybe the last weekend would be the time he'd do it. Michael, thoughts?
You said everything that I've been thinking. I mean,
yeah.
I don't have any thoughts on whether he gets out or not. I mean, look, this is of interest because it's one of three major races. I think that's part of it. I do think it's always covered. I mean, I remember being a producer and still covering Bill de Blasio as if he was similar to the more Mamdani figure, the far left person in the race. But I mean, as a Democrat, I hope. The other interesting thing that makes this different is that you have an anti-capitalist Democrat running to be mayor of the hub of capitalism to the world, and that is an interesting storyline. As a Democrat, though, I hope Andrew pulls it out.
Yeah, Amber.
I don't think Curtis is going to get out, mostly because of that interview he did recently where he was talking about people calling for him to do that. And he said, well, this is a Democrat made problem. This isn't my problem. And there's also, I don't think, a really great indication that, all of Sliwa's voters are going to go for Cuomo. I think you would see a lot of people stay home. A Democracy Institute poll just hit my inbox before coming on this program, and it said that more than 60% of New Yorkers think that socialism is better than capitalism for the city. So I think the idea that Sliwa getting out of the race is just going to take out Mamdani is probably more of like a wishful thinking fantasy than reality.
Yeah. Matthew, thank you. Great question. I will make this, not prediction, but I'll just tell you, my informed spidey senses, we're going to see at least one more piece of pretty significant opposition research dropped in this race here at the end that will potentially shake things up. On one of the candidates, of course. No, on Mamdani. I think.
Will it have a effect on the outcome?
If it's what I'm told it is, it would have an effect. I don't know that it would mean he'd lose, but it would be the most devastating piece of opposition.
Will both partisan sides of media be enticed to cover that kind of story?
If it's what I'm told it is, yes, they will.
Okay, that's interesting
yes,
to me.
They will. Yes, they will. It will be. It'll be irresistible. I'm not sure it's true, but it could be true. All right, Jen, welcome in. Thanks for joining. Jen is from Oklahoma, and unmute and tell folks what's on your mind.
Well, I've been thinking about the East Wing thing, and I can think of a lot of reasons why people would be upset. But the idea that they seem to be hanging their hat on the great hat,
that's awesome.
Hanging their hat on the idea of norms is rich, as far as I'm concerned, because Trump was elected because vocal persons on the left have been crushing and throwing out societal norms for about the last decade. The fact that we seem to have an infinite number of genders, and math no longer requires a right answer, and they're not teaching biology because it teaches sexual reproduction, has a male and a female, chest feeding, all kinds of things are just tossed out. And so it just seems like a very bizarre thing for them to hang their hat on.
I agree. I think it's really, I think it's a weird hill to die on. But I've also been surprised about the shelf life. At least I don't know what it is today, but it was lasting over a week through of coverage. I was kind of surprised because as somebody who worked there, nobody in the mainstream media really cared much about what was going on in the East Wing for the 4 years for the 4 years that Jill Biden was the first lady, nor the first year that Melania was. And Melania has done more in her first year than she probably did in the other 4 years, that she's chosen to get out there more and put her name to substantive policy stuff. It's been incredible to watch, but there's never been real coverage of it. So it's kind of a lot of crocodile tears from the mainstream media, but it also makes Democrats just look like the party of hall monitors and pearl clutchers, and the HR department just against everything. Even though Harry Truman changed the facade of the South Portico and did it with his own money.
Yeah, Amber, you ever seen a movie in the White House screening room in the East Wing?
No, I have not. I just always kind of
ever use the East Room as the path you use to get to White House holiday parties?
Yes, and also to view the Christmas decorations. I just always kind of viewed the East Wing as like that was built so that the presidents could get their wives out of the way. Maybe that's sexist of me to say, but I think that's probably, there's some truth to it. Yeah, I think it's an interesting hill to die on. Obviously, there have been massive changes made to the White House numerous times throughout history. This one is funded by private donors, which is nice for the taxpayer at a time when we're in the middle of a government shutdown. And it also just makes sense to have a ballroom. So I think it's really strange. One other point I would make in response to Jen, in regards to the norm breaking, which is what we hear about the Trump presidency. In addition to Democrats breaking norms prior to that, Trump was also elected because he was a norm breaker, right? Because people wanted a fresh perspective in the White House. So that's more actually an attribute for Trump for his base.
Yeah, Jen. Thank you, Jen. Thank you. I'm very grateful to you both, everybody, for being on, and some first timers. But Amber, Daily Caller, and Michael LaRosa, who proudly wears his E-Swing gear. Have you had that a long time?
A couple months.
Okay, nice. Grateful to you both for coming back on. Love having you on. Thank you all for being part of Two Way. If you didn't watch Meghan McCain's interview with Brett Baer, I recommend it to you, including Brett discussing on Citizen McCain whether he might leave Fox News for CBS News. This was speculated about in a few places. His answer might surprise you. That's how we tease in the media. And I'll be back 9 a.m. tomorrow with Dan and Sean for the morning meeting. Thank you all. Have a good night, and we'll see you at 9 a.m. And again, thanks to you to Amber and Michael.
Thank you.